Welcome back to the channel. So here we're going to give the Takom Tiger 1 a full build, and that always starts with research. So the first place to go, I always advise, if you're building a Tiger, is tiger1.info, which is a website dedicated to the Tiger tank and run by David Burden, and he usually goes specifically into kits, and he has done here, and then just points out a few of the worst things that he's noticed just by looking over either the CAD drawing or looking for a kit or looking at a review. So it's always a good starting point, and then from there you can go on and actually look at the points he's raised and decide whether you want to do that yourself or not. So here, first off, these shock absorbers, I actually felt like they're okay on the model when we're there, and I don't think it's too much of a problem. So all I've done is sanded them down. I didn't worry about filling that hole in the middle. And as far as drilling the holes in the sort of sponson up there, I can't think of a better word, another word to say, I decided not to in the end. I thought I just not really worried about it. So that's the good thing. You can know, and you can decide not to actually pay much attention to it. But just knocking those shock absorbers back didn't hurt, and it wasn't a difficult thing to do, and it made me think, well, at least I've done something. So then we've got the cooling fans. Now there is, if you follow the instructions to the letter, you are going to get slight fit issues. So my advice after building this kit is to do it a slightly different way and actually glue these to the whole roof. Actually glue them to that so that then they position correctly on in the whole tub. There is one problem that comes with that we'll see later, which I didn't anticipate at this point, but it's not a difficult. I think it's the lesser of two evils, but we'll get to that later on. So we've got a nice little fan. I think that's a radiator. And then there's the fuel tanks. So all of that goes under the grills at the back on the whole roof, so you can see through. The issue is that bit that's just been put on the bench there, or is now in my hand. That needs to slot in to the underside of the mesh screens, the grills. And if you place it in these slots here, where it's decided to go, it just isn't quite in the right place. So you have to kind of wiggle the whole roof for it to slot down, and it can sort of pop up and not quite fit. You can make it fit, but you need to trim the tabs off the whole roof so that it doesn't want to try and slot in at the front end where the glacis plate is. So you can see on the other side I've already glued the fans in, as well as the fuel tanks. And here it's just a bit of a wiggle to clip it in. And when you do it, you're kind of stretching it across. It does fit, but you have to like clip it down. That is going to lead you to problems when you come to glue in the whole roof to the whole sides and the whole tub. So it's simply better just to glue it to the base of the whole roof and cut all of those sections out on the inside like I'm doing now. And I find it fits far better, far easier, and the one little thing we've got to do later on I think isn't a major problem compared to what it could be if we did go ahead and run it like it's suggested. And there you can see the slot where it just locks in. Let me get that glued up, and it's a very positive fit. Once we've got all that together, it's time to start looking at the plates for the Zimmerit. And it's extremely well moulded. It's some of the best Zimmerit I've seen on any model, and it goes on very well. Now, when we're gluing on plates like this, it's worth mentioning, because this crops up a couple times in this build, the different glues, especially Tamiya. So ignore the tops. If we just look at the bottle, we got this white bottle here. Then we got the sort of yellowy bottle, which is the fast-acting Tamiya Extra Thin, and the green bottle, which is the normal Tamiya Extra Thin. This white bottle, I've changed the lid. I've put a smaller brush, because the brush it comes with is much thicker. This is totally different. This is more like your traditional glues, like your Revel glue that you used to get, and liquid poly from Humbrol. It's more that type of glue. In fact, liquid poly might have been something different, but it's very much like the type of plastic glue. So it's not cement. It's not necessarily melting the two bits of plastic together. So you wouldn't hold this like you would with Tamiya Extra Thin and run the glue down the seam and then see it all melt and get a bead. That's not what this is doing. This is gluing two pieces together using the glue as a glue. And it has useful properties. In this instance, it's very easy way of making sure this plate is lined up and fixed in the correct position before now going on with your Tamiya Extra Thin to get that cemented into position. If you just ran around with that, you can easily not get a joint inside and in the middle, and you could get problems with the gluing of the plate. So when we're gluing large flat areas, I always use the Tamiya white bottle cement. And when we get into the tracks, it's a way of getting around gluing the tracks to the jig. So we're on to wheels. With the Tiger tank, there's always a lot of wheels, and this is no exception. They go together extremely well. I always just like to leave the sprue nibs on the wheel until they're glued together. So then when I sand them off, I sand it more evenly, that rather than when they're apart, I tend to sand them to a beveled edge. So it's always important. Now, Takom kits, the one downside, and I'd love to hope they improve, but they haven't yet, and it's been a number of years since the first one I built. Their seam lines is just unlike anything else. I don't know what it is, but you do get flash, you do get slight misalignment in the moulds, and you do get quite heavy seam lines, and that's more so than anyone else I've come across that's a modern manufacturer. And now this kit's brand new, so you know it's nothing to do with the moulds being worn. I don't know what it is, but that is the only downside I find to Takom kits. So you do have to spend a bit of time going around cleaning up parts, cleaning up seams, going around with your sanding sticks like this Infinity sponge. Very useful, just to whip around any large parts, because you'll find they will have slight flashy areas, maybe to one corner, or they'll have quite heavy seams going around them, and that can lead to fit issues. But once you've cleaned all that up, it's absolutely fine. Now, the way we fit the torsion bar swing arms is ingenious. It's a friction fit, and they clip straight in. They clip in that way, and then as you turn them, they snap into place. It's the best I've seen it. I think it's absolutely spot on, and it's very difficult to get them out of alignment due to them all slotting into these tabs back here. So if they're in there and they're in the other side, when you look along them, they're absolutely bang on. So just give them a bit of glue and you're off. We've just got the knock-in plate. I don't know what else you'd call it. It's a plate there to knock the pins back in the track as it goes past. I was a bit worried that you had two different parts, and I actually got them mixed up. I realised that they're sided, and you can't get it wrong. They've got the old Tamiya trick: one large hole, one small hole. So they can only go on one way because it's not in the middle, so it will be too high if you get it wrong, and it won't fit. So So that's a nice touch. We're just gluing on the mounts for the sprocket there. And I like to use a quite heavy clamp just to make sure these are on exactly how I want and centered and nicely glued on. I do find with the Tamiya Extra Thin, the Takom plastic does melt quite a lot, so you want to be careful with heavy compression if you've put a lot of glue on, because you'll find you'll get a huge melted bead of plastic coming out. And now we're just getting the wheels on, and we're going to glue all of these because we're going to use the kit track, so we're going to get it all glued on and have it as one large unit glued on the model. Now when we come to fix the outer wheels, there are these plates that I've just put on there. So that is for the one that doesn't have the outer wheels attached, and that's the front wheel, and they often took that off because mud would get caught up in behind it. But the rest of the wheels for this run of wheels do need a similar plate that's got a hole in it, and I missed that, and I was wondering why they weren't fitting, and it's these here. So the two at the top are if you want to blank it off and you're not going to put the wheels, and the four here are for attaching the wheels. And we've also got a nice separate tyre to a wheel as well. So this is building a specific tank. Otto Carius is in the summer, so it's all present and correct as far as we can tell from the few photos we got. But if you want to just pick a Tiger that there isn't a picture of, you can really go to town, and I plan to do that with my mid. I plan to have a bit of fun with that and maybe lose a tyre here and there, and make it look like a very well-worn Tiger 1. With these outer wheels, I found that the join was very weak, so once I've used the Tamiya Extra Thin, I just packed in some super glue there just to really for me to get them aligned without having to worry about drying time and them moving. So the super glue fixes it, and then the Tamiya Extra Thin is still in there. Now the tracks. A lot has been said about the tracks online. A lot of people don't like the look of them. They are a little bit of work, and you will know exactly what's needed as we go on through here. And there you can see I'm cleaning up the jig because I've done what some of you guys said just to see what I thought was happening, and it was. So do not use Tamiya Extra Thin in that jig. That's where a lot of people are going wrong, I think, because one of the main complaints is the tracks glued to the jig. That's mainly due to using the wrong glue, I think. Now this jig for the sprocket is very, very good. You've got a couple of large ejector pin marks that you've got to just knock off, but other than that, you get the sprocket in, and then you can set the tracks up. And in this video, I actually put the wrong tracks on that sprocket bit, and I have to then change it. So very easily done. I'd done a whole run and it was fine. I did the second run and filmed it and got it wrong. So you do have to pay attention. What it basically comes down to, the problem with Tiger 1 tracks is in real life the guide horns were open. There you can see the different glues again. I'm just explaining it like we did before. So from a moulding point of view, it seems impossible to mould a complete piece of track with the open guide horns. So you have to work around it, and kind of this is the only way really, is to have the guide horns moulded separate. So there you can see I've used that white cement whilst all those tracks are in that jig, and then it just pops out. Once you've got it out of the jig, like I've done, that's the time to put the guide horns on. and then you can use your Tamiya extra thin, because in the jig the tracks don't lay flat, so when you go to put the guide horns on, they don't line up. They fit on some and they're not touching on others, so you're getting a real muddle. So the best way to do it is exactly like this, is get them glued in a row and then get the guide horns on, and then if you hold each end of the sprue, you can nip them out with your sprue nippers. They're not going to go anywhere. You can take that piece of sprue off. You can then put quite a bit of extra thin along each join. It will loosen up the joins again, and then you can mould these around the sprocket. And that's the simplest way I found. And I've got to be honest, when we get into tracks, it's one of my main bugbears really. I'd love to put metal tracks, resin tracks on every model, but this whole kit to me was £42. I haven't seen a set of Tiger tracks that I can get delivered to me that are actually less than that. And the days are gone where I can spend, or want to spend, that amount of money just on a set of tracks. So if the kit comes with tracks that are accurate, and actually is probably more accurate than certainly a lot of the metal tracks. I know the resin tracks are extremely good. I'm going to persevere with this. And I think if you were to take a set of, let's say, Frill model tracks, where you've got to do a little bit of drilling out, or even Master Club tracks, setting up this run here from the kit took as much time as it would if I had to do a run of metal tracks. It's just fiddly, and it's only fiddly on the separate links that you've got to do around the sprocket and the idler. The actual links, the lengths of track, there's simplicity in themselves. There's absolutely no problem to them. So it took almost the same time, I would suggest, but this seems more fiddly, and it seems more daunting when they're on the sprues. So I would suggest you give it a go before you just discount it, see how you get on, and then go on from there. And I did actually try a set of Master Club tracks. I couldn't get them to fit well around the wheels, so that's just something else to bear in mind. On the mid version that I want to do later on, like I said, I am going to put a set of metal tracks on there, so I will see what this fit issue is. I've got a set of Frill model that I've had for years and years and years, repurposed from an old build, and I'm just going to put them on and see what happens. So I will let you know that in due time. But here we go, moulding around. So again, I must say, apart from Ryefield model, this is the only Tiger kit that has accurate tracks out of the box when it comes to guide horns, and that's what we're really worried about. I know you can get these resin 3D printed tracks now that are just absolute replicas of the ones on the real tanks, but I don't think most of us are too worried about that. We just want a nice set of tracks that fit right, look right, and are good to go. If you don't worry about the open guide horns, there's a lot of Tiger kits out there that have got individual link tracks with solid guide horns, and they work just fine, including all the Dragon Tigers. So as I was saying before, I realised I'd glued the wrong section on the tracks on the sprocket, so I'm just livening that join up again with a little bit of extra thin, and then with a wiggle here and there you can unglue the join. And they were meant to go on this end, because they're meant to be a longer sweep going onto the first road well. And now we're just going to offer all these sections of track up to the road wheels and get it all lined up. And it's a simple thing of just following the process that's in the instructions. We've got the odd individual link here and there we've got to put on. It is worth mentioning that it's a little bit tight when you get to the idler, so to get them all joined up correctly, you do need to allow a little bit of movement in that idler. And here you go, when you put that long sweep on there, that length of track, that's done you a huge line of tracks without any problem. And that's one of the benefits of the link and length. Once you're around the sprocket and around the idler, it's just, you've got the whole sweep done. Whereas if you're doing individual link tracks or metal tracks or resin tracks, you've still got to drill every single one of them out and pin them all together. But then you can put them all on one sweep and take them off, and they do have a natural sag. So you just got to weigh up what you want, and if money's no object, then the easy way around this is throwing some money at a set of aftermarket tracks and getting them on the model. It's just what fits for you. But I know a lot of us can be a little price conscious, you know, and what would a set of tracks make this? Nearly £100 model? It's getting a bit past it then for me personally. I wouldn't want to spend that sort of money on a model that is just being built for the hell of it. That would have to be a very special build for me. Super glue is very useful with this as well, so using Tamiya Extra Thin all the way around. But where you tend to get under tension, if you're trying to get something glued under tension with Tamiya Extra Thin and you want to get a nice sort of sweep, the trouble with it is it will kind of shrink back and pull the plastic back as it dries, and it won't sit in a natural position. So that's where just a dab of super glue will hold it and allow the Tamiya Extra Thin to go off and bind it. So it gives it a stronger bind. But that super glue is extremely useful just for setting up a piece where you want it to be. And now we've just got a bit of work around the idler. And this I did test and move and test and move. Now the idlers were positionable, so there isn't a fixed place for them to be on the tank all the time, so you do have a little bit of wiggle room. And once the tracks are sorted, we're on to building up the rest of the parts for the hull, bringing that whole tub together, and then getting the whole roof on. And that starts with the rear plate, and there's just a few areas you need to drill out, which we've done. Attention to it. And now I'm just going to show you, I've removed some of the Zimmerit, and for this particular tank, which is Otto Carius's, a large amount of Zimmerit was missing across the front of the tank, as we can see here in a couple of the photos. Again, this is from the Tiger 1 info site. So I've removed that just with a knife and sanding it back, and there's a little bit missing on the lower front as well. We can also see down the edge that there's no Zimmerit on the edge of the Glacius plate. I think that's what it's called, front plate. So I've removed all of that. We do need to add in a few little bits at the end, and I have done that, and I didn't film it. So I was getting ready for paint, I thought I'd put some on, and I did some green stuff Zimmerit. So we'll look at that in another video later on, I think. So you've got two different front plates here, the transmission covers, one with Zimmerit, one without. When I looked on the photos as best I could, I've just opted that I just don't think there was Zimmerit on there, so I've put the one on without the Zimmerit. But the kit tells you to put the one with Zimmerit on. It's difficult to be definitive on which one's correct and which one's not, so whichever you like the look of. Again, here we're just using the white bottle Tamiya glue to glue these side plates on, make sure we're happy with where they are. Then we run around with the Tamiya Extra Thin as we were showing before. And we just start to bring the major components for the whole sides, rear, front plate and transmission cover on as we go. Now, it's important just to note on this, and you can see there's a rear section here with some interior parts. All that's been put on so we can get the glass bits and everything for the vision port and the machine gun ball mount. But it's just worth taking a note on how this section clips in. It looks for a long time like it's not going to fit, and then it just snaps in. So you just got to apply a bit of pressure at the right point and it will slide straight in. And as you can see, you think, oh, that's close, and then that's really good. That's a Tamiya sort of fit you're getting there. Go over the other side, you've got a gap, push it, perfect, exactly what you want. It is a bit of a friction fit, and it's quite tight. And this here as well, the transmission cover is kind of snaps in, and when it's in, it's in. But there's a lot of ways to have it not quite in. So just make sure everything's lined up before you go with glue. And just be sure that you're happy with it, and then glue it up as usual. So there we can see that the major parts of the hole has now been sorted, and now we come to the problem that you get if you glue up your cooling fans in this way. The kit is designed for them not to be in the way, so you can slot this grill cover underneath those grooves, and then it will lift up and go back down. So I've cut all the tabs off bar one. Then if you slide it in at an angle, it goes in fine, and you don't actually miss anything for it because you're going to glue it up anyway. And I even keep them there and brush paint in there a bit of black, and I just lift them up and then put them back down and then glue them when I'm happy. So I think as far as you know, for that slight thing that we've seen there that you have to put up with, I think it's well worth doing it this way, because you get a much better fit of the top deck. It all fits much better around the engine deck. And now just looking at the exhaust shrouds at the back there, I'm just thinning them down a little bit, although I noticed when I was doing this on camera, I'm actually doing the wrong end, and when I went to offer it up, I cut that bit out, but I thought, well, that's not even the right end. It's not the top end. But once it's thinned out, that just makes it look a little bit better, and I'm just thinning it, putting like a beveled edge on it rather than trying to thin it all the way down. Gluing in the cast sections here as well. Not totally sure on all the terminology, but these are the cast bits that go around the actual muffler, the upright there. And I've also, once I've got that section in, that little screw head, I've then gone around just with some of the Tamiya cement brush, just dabbed around, add a bit more cast texture on. Now we're putting all of these parts on now, just sort of offering them up and leaving it all loose until we're in the right section. And then putting the shrouds on, and they lock into those raised holes sections. They're like bolt holes, boxes. Side fenders have a very similar mounting as well, which is good as well, because if you leave them off, that's how they looked on the real tank. You just need to pay attention to these as well. I don't know what we'd call them. There is a name, but I can't remember. It's the cover, and it has to face a certain way. It's not quite the way you always think it is. It's a weird shape on the top. It's not like a star. It's almost like a pentagon. Is that right? The 5-pointed. But again, look, if in doubt, look on the internet. Tiger One Info again comes up with quite a good diagram of how they're designed. So it's just worth taking a note, just rather than just gluing as it is. This is another nice option, and I'll show you the problem with Takom plastic in a moment. So I've put the extra fin there, and I'm just getting it perfect, and I thought, right, okay, we'll just tweak that in just to get it hanging just right, push it down, make sure it's all solid. One final line up, and bang, straight for it. That's because it's so finely moulded, the Tamiya extra fin has melted through the join, so that tiny little bit of pressure was just enough to break through it. And of course, I did the other one off of camera, and I didn't have this problem whatsoever. But if you do get these issues, just take it easy. Just think through the process, think about what you're going to do, and just line it all up. Use your Tamiya extra fin, and if you get it all wet and it all is in the right place, once it's set, you won't notice there was a problem. And now I'm happy with how it is. Just don't touch it now, because it would be very soft. And once we've moved on past that point, we've got, I guess this is a piece of armour there for the vision port. Slots in perfectly. Again, I think you can only get that on one way. It won't go on the wrong way, which is another nice touch. I'm not sure I film putting the vision port on, but it's a very intricate way of doing it. And you can have it movable as well. You can have it in the open or closed position. Just going through right here now with some very watered down Citadel paint, Abaddon Black or Abaddon Black. because I just felt you can just about see too much through there. And then the fuel tanks, which are in the ones ahead, I spray through there black as well. And we're getting ready now for the mesh grills. So you can see now they've all been blackened up a little bit with some brush painting and spraying, just some Tamiya paint, and then we've got the grills to go on. Now I did do these on a photo etch bender, and it made me realise my photo etch bender is no good. And I'm suffering from jumping too soon. I got a photo etch bender, I think it's the first one that was ever made by Mission Models, and I got it out of Tamiya Model Magazine when I was about 13. And I thought, oh, that's an excellent idea, and it's different to the ones you get now. It's made out of plastic. It's the same concept, but there's a very deep trench where you're meant to slot the piece of photo etch across, and it works for really large bits, but bends like I'm doing here, it was just falling in the trench and twisting and bending. So I think I need to get a metal one that doesn't have a trench for smaller parts like this. And then you just get a precise, you slide a blade under, and then you just fold it up against the metal edge, and it can only go one way, and that's along the bend. But it is a shame. My good old trusty photo etch bending tool is sort of showing its design faults. We might talk about it in a separate video. Got a lot of ideas floating around, so stay tuned to the channel, and we'll see where we go in the future. So we've got the photo etch mesh grills on, and we've done one side of the copper tow cables, so we're going to show you the other side. Now, there's a little bit of work you need to do on them as well. First off, the towing hook, well, the tow cable eyes, which are just down there to the right, we need to drill them out. So using my trusty twist drills, I'm just opening that hole up a bit, and then the end of the copper wire, I'm actually twisting with the grain of the way it's been twisted, putting a little bit of super glue on that just to try and get it down to a point, then pushing it into this hole, super gluing it in there, and even then I'm still getting the odd bit fraying off, and again twisting with the grain of it, if you like, or the thread of it, and that gives you the best join you can really hope for. And then we've even got a straggly bit there, so just cut them off. Again, steady clippers, the one sent to me. Can't have better proof of how useful a tool and how good a tool is if I'm still using it nearly a year after being sent it for free. And there we go, just a touch of super glue, and that's that'll all be absolutely fine. Once you get some paint on that, won't notice any of those joins or any issues there. And just a slight intruder. Thought since we were going quite long on this video, might as well leave this bit in. My trusty companion. I've recently moved my bench to the living room, which has had many positives to it. Again, I'm going to talk about this in a separate video. There's a lot coming down the line, but this is the one downside of it. The cat now is not shut away, and she likes to have a look at what's going on. Now, we've got some of the fixings on the upper deck there, and everything's really come together. The doors, really nice. You can have them open, lots of detail on the inside. Chose not to on this one, probably be opening them on another build. And now we're just getting these tool cables fixed on using the clamps that come with it. And they're nice plastic clamps. I don't think there's any real reason to change them out. I'm using super glue here because it's gluing under tension, and like we were talking about earlier in the video, with the extra fin, it won't hold it long enough. So it's best just to get a little bit of super glue on one end, get it all glued up, and as you can see now, we're just popping the other end open, and then we'll clamp that down with some super glue. And it's just a fast way of moving around. If you try doing this with plastic glue, you'd be there forever, and you're just getting a bit of a mess. Now we've got all the fine points glued onto that very detailed cupola. This is one of the main issues on this kit that is actually something that you need to address, otherwise you're going to get into a bit of a problem. And this is a complete flaw from Takom, and I hope they take it on board and fix their future moulds. All they've done is given you a tab and groove fit for the cupola to make sure it's in the right position, only they've moulded it in the wrong position. Everything that needs to be there is in the correct position. So that's the cutout, which is for that bar that's the mechanism for the door opening. But if you see there, what I'm just pointing out now, the tab is in the wrong place, the gap is in the correct place. So if you were to twist that cupola so it clips into the tab, you'll have the cupola in the wrong orientation on top of the turret. If you try and move it to the right orientation, it won't fit. So you need to cut off the tab. That's a simple thing. Cut that tab out, line it up with the cutout for the door mechanism, and obviously making sure that one periscope is pointing at 12 o'clock straight ahead, and then it will be in the right position. And that's something like that. And once you're happy with that and you've got it set up, get your glue on and you're ready to go. A little bit of interior detail on the turret, an extremely well detailed gun breech, which I just hammered together really, just so it was there, mainly for a counterweight to the metal barrel. Wasn't interested in showing it on the model, and you see a glimpse of it in the video, but it is very well detailed. You've got this interior ring that slots in. I'm just showing you there on the join, and that's what all of these parts fit to. It doesn't seem to have any issue with the fit of the turret, so you don't need to make sure it's a very nice join at all. And I've just got the one seat, so there we are. That's no sprue nibs or anything cut off, no seam line sorted, but you can see it's a very comprehensive gun breech, which is nice to see, because I do remember the old days where Tamiya used to put on their box a fully detailed gun breech. So this has that too. Now, just got to take note of these two slotted parts there. You can just see towards the top of the screen. They need to slot together like that. And if you do that, the mantlet will fit and everything's fine. Just a very unusual way of doing it, but it works, so, you know, why not? It's a very nice, again, friction fit, really, really good. No need to really do any more than what's asked for. It goes on very nice. And then this turret roof slots in on the top, doing the same thing, and that fixes in the mantlet. Well, the gun breech, the whole mechanism. And that leads us into one final tricky part, which is the track hangers. Now, this is some of the best I've seen in kit form. I don't know anyone to have done this as good as this, really. There's a lot of ways around this. I've seen resin extras for older kits, and with photo etch parts and metal for the metal wire for the handles. But as a kit part, moulded, this is brilliant. So we've got another fixed kind of jig. They're placed on the sprue in the correct spacing. So all you've got to do is line them up with marks. There's sort of ridges on the top of the turret. Very subtle. And you just kind of line them up. Now these are the mounts for the hinges. So these are the mounted hinge. And then you've got a bracket that sits on that. And where they join, that's the hinge. And it locks in or it sort of locks onto the track or hooks off it. And what we can do is, using the next part and a piece of track, glue them in a way that they'll actually spring hold under tension the track through friction again. Because we just glue them slightly over the angle that they need to be. So when you push the track in, you just kind of ease it up a little bit and then it will hold the track, which is very useful for painting. And the kit comes with a metal barrel, so we chuck the turret across the table and get ready to put the barrel in. And a very fine piece it is too. And the muzzle brake's lovely. Everything's really great. And the few little problems this kit does have, like the cupola, which are obvious things. They're teething problems, and if Takom fix it in the next pressing, and then if they rebox these later on, you get that fixed. You know, this is top stuff. It really is. We're sort of back to the old days of Dragon. You know, these are the new Dragon. I mean, Dragon aren't even the new Dragon or the old Dragon. So just cleaning up those hinges, and the best way to go about it is to use the clippers, get in real tight and try and get a clean cut. So there you can see the idea. So that's the kind of hinge bit, and having gap around the joint is not a problem, because there would have been. It is a working hinge. Again, we've got cast marks molded into the top of it. It's is pretty good stuff, pretty impressive this. And then we just wait for that glue just to set up a little bit. And then we can get a piece of track, put it in there, make sure the clamp is in the correct position to at least hold it. And what we want to be doing is pushing that up as we put the track in there. And then just really make sure it's overly angled down. And then as it dries, when you go back to do it, so now just a slight touch on the end there. And that will mean that when we push the track in, it will be just tensioned. That becomes very useful for painting, and I can tell you why I know that, because I've already painted this up and it was very useful putting the tracks in there. And here I think this one's already dried up, so you can see the effect I'm talking about. And we've done the other side, and there we are. That's pretty much it. The only thing left to do now is we can put a little bit of detail on the track. So we can drill out the holes where the bar isn't. If you really wanted to go to the next level, you could drill out the other end as well, because there's a pin in the top and in the bottom. There should actually be a bar running through the other side. So you could drill that out, or you could put a piece of sprue in, or a piece of metal rod, just to fill those gaps as if there is a bar running down the back there. If you can just see on the raised bit, there is a pin in there. Final thing, so specific to the mid, I don't even think this is on the late. This is the travel lock for the barrel. And that's a multi-part piece again. Very well detailed, ingenious, and you can pose it like I have, with the chain off, or with it split apart as well, because it did split in the middle and drop down both sides. I wouldn't advise doing this for your gun barrel. I was a bit it did go okay, but I got a little bit of a problem with that super glue being around. I didn't get a clean, sharp finish around where the barrel goes into that plastic bit. But yeah, I'm happy. And here we are, the built kit. Very nice. So I'll just leave you a little bit of music, and we'll look at a few of the extra parts that the kit comes with, including the figure, and bring this one to the end. So we'll be finishing this kit off, in the coming weeks, and maybe next month. But I hope to get this one wrapped up in about sort of 4 to 6 weeks, all being well. And as I said, there'll be plenty of different videos coming down the line, so stay tuned to the channel, and if you like what you see, your support's very appreciated, and do leave a comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.